Welcome to the Nonprofit Edge, a podcast series to promote purpose in practice. Each week, this webinar series features an extraordinary individual that provides valuable and impactful services, helping to transform the capabilities of their nonprofit clients. Join us as we explore a variety of topics, all vital to the success of nonprofit organizations. Learn and grow from the experience and expertise of our featured guests. Without further delay, let's introduce you to the host of the Nonprofit Edge podcast series, Chris Looney.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nonprofit Edge podcast, where we explore the ideas, strategies, and mindsets shaping the future of nonprofit leadership and fundraising. And today's conversation is one I've been looking forward to. We're diving deep into the evolution of direct response fundraising, where it's been, where it is today, where it might be going next. And joining me is Ruben Gonzalez of The Dot, a leader who brings both strategic insight and practical experience to how organizations connect with donors in meaningful ways. Welcome to the show, Ruben. We're glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it. It's a real honor to be with you. A legend,
Oh,
a legend in the fundraising nonprofit industry here in Orange County, and I guess
oh, you're
beyond.
kind. You're too kind. You're too kind. Well, I have big shoes to fill with both of my parents being so involved and loving the nonprofit sector. So they brought me up right, and I'm just trying to do some good every day. And I appreciate your kind gesture there. But let's not waste any time. Let's go into the topic for today. And I did want to kind of take us back into the way back machine and look at the beginning of this whole kind of direct response function as it relates to fundraising in the nonprofit sector or awareness building in the nonprofit sector, right? And so when you think about the early days of direct response, what made direct mail so effective in your mind?
Um, well, first of all, I have been an executor of these programs for over 40 years. I've not been a creator. So, but I've worked hand in hand with the creators, right? The designers. So that aspect I will touch on a little bit, but it's not my expertise, right? So this is more the mechanical, the functional part of what we're talking about. Um, so 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, mail was not challenged. There wasn't a lot of competition in that arena, and it was the omni-channel, right? It had everything there. So you had near total tension in your mailbox, and that's why it was so effective, right? And the I also believe that the when it comes to the nonprofit portion of direct mail or direct marketing, direct communication, because to me, it's all one and the same, right? Is that donors were treated more back then as a not a transaction, but a relationship. So
Okay.
some of the communications that were coming to them was that more of a relationship kind of communication, um, one-on-one thing. Emotion was first, logic was second. When it came to communicating, um,
Hmm.
you weren't necessarily getting a lot of facts. And I mean, like up until this day, somebody hears that Sarah McLachlan song and they associate it the uh, with the commercial about the ASP, right?
ASPCA, I think,
Yes,
maybe.
yes, and it makes people cry, and there's people they're
Right.
angry. There was that thing, and then back then repetition wasn't so annoying; it was nurturing,
Right.
where we were in constant communication with our customers or donors in this. particular conversation, and they wanted to hear about what we were doing, right? Um, the other things that was going on that was important was that it was the clear channel for a call to action, right? You received something, there was a return envelope, it had a stamp on there, like you filled
Yep.
out a card, right? So there was always like a clear call to action that was doing that, and I think some of that is lost, you know.
All right.
And then that long form of persuasion was normal. So
Mm.
there was a rule where like you had to communicate on a very regular basis and talk to people and nurture that instead of this I'm just going to throw something out there and everybody's going to respond and come back. And there was I think there was segmentation was a big discipline back then too, where um, you weren't necessarily trying to reach people that you didn't already know wanted to hear from you.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more specific, a little bit more targeted.
Yeah. Interesting. That's really fascinating. And at what point did direct mail start to lose its effectiveness in your mind?
Saturation, big
Okay.
issue. There was a visual that I think I shared with you previously, and I have a photograph somewhere where I came home one day and my mailbox was literally overflowing, right?
Right.
And the front porch was covered with flyers and menus and door hangers, right? So there was this oversaturation, and people started using the term junk mail, right? And we contributed that as an industry and as mailers because as we saw that something was working, we just started doing it more and more and more. And then
Sure.
list inflation over list quality became a big factor, right? I more mail, more mail, more, hoping we're gonna get this thing. Um, the messages became more generic, less original. That we sort of lost that as organizations started to scale. They weren't focused on the relationship they developed in the beginning with their mission statement and their I keep wanting to use the word customers, but donors. I got to put that hat back on, right? But
No, no, no. And in fairness, you deal on the for-profit front and you deal on the non-profit front. So we have to give you a little bit of a pass because your business is not exclusively our sector, which is fine. You're learning from both to give us
yes.
all better guidance. So
So
all good.
things became less original, and then behavior started creeping in as digital migration started growing and becoming. First there was email, and then there was mobile and social, and so direct mail became sort of something in the background.
Nah,
And
yeah.
there were a lot of reasons, and then cost. Especially in the last 20 years, we had the financial 2008 financial collapse, 9/11 affected a lot of budgets for a long time. There's just different things that um, COVID, I mean, just things that happen in the world that, and then as digital sort of came along and the Pied Pipers came, that this is, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I don't want to get too far in the weeds about why digital became this. So it, 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 yeah, it just sort of, and part of it is we created our own problem by
Yeah.
oversaturating
Yeah.
that inbox, the
Yeah, very good. And
physical inbox.
yeah, right. Well, I was going to ask, of course, about whether the issue was volume, messaging, or strategy, and it seems like it was all of those things. Um, and, are there still things that you think still work from that era today? Are you still a champion of some of those things today? All of them or none of them? How do you view sort of good old-fashioned
Yeah,
direct response
so the
mail?
principles are still the same,
Okay.
regardless of the media or the method or the channel that you're using to communicate,
Okay.
right? And there's studies and there's a lot of data behind this, and we're not going to go over right now about how
Right.
it actually outperforms when done correctly anything that's ever been done digitally. Something that's
Okay.
tactile. So the long form storytelling still works,
Okay.
right?
Good. Good.
Especially when it feels personal and it's not institutional, right? It's not generic. And when I'm talking about personalization, it's not like Dear Chris, you know, that they had the fact that your full name is Christopher, but they're calling you by the name that you prefer, right? That not
Yeah.
that kind of personalization to your like. So the other part was focusing more on behavior and not demographics. Like
Okay.
what is it that you do? What time of year do you like to do that? It was a lot easier at one point in time where you knew like historically June everybody took off to go on vacation because it was the summer break. And nothing
Yeah.
really happened in December because everybody was again they were on their winter break kind of thing. Um, so the handcrafting that segmentation that you can have multiple stories about the same organization going on at the exact same time is okay rather than this generic blast, right?
Hmm.
Um, the strong emotional framing, sorry, I almost said flaming, is has to do with not being abstract about your institution and what you're doing and what the message is. And that can happen sometimes when you have this just an image that comes by digitally. There's no story, it's just an image, right? And then the clarity, like the call to action, that still works. That discipline is timeless, that you have one ask, one action, and one path, right?
I like that.
Not
You said
not
it again.
one
One
ask,
app.
one action, and one path, right? It's
Okay.
that clarity, especially in this digital overload and so many options, you know. It's not like walking into 7-Eleven where you get 10,000 choices.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then the tactile experience, right? The physical mail, and that's has a sensory advantage. And there's a lot of it that's been studied. Again, there's a lot of things, anywhere from the texture, the feel of whatever you're doing, whether it's coded or uncoated, the weight of it is also important, right? So when you get like those coupon books, right? It's a magazine, but it's flimsy, right? It's always kind of like
Mhm.
lightweight. But if you get something like Car and Driver magazine, it's also a magazine, it's also a publication, but it has a different feel to it. The paper's thicker, there's a different weight, right? Um, so, and the personalization that can happen today is it didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, but the personalization that we can have on paper now is amazing.
Yeah, I
You
bet.
Yeah, you can just break it down there where you could do a mailer of 10,000 pieces and not no two will be exactly the same.
Interesting. Oh yeah, right. Good call. Good call. Well, I was always I started thinking about our conversation the other day about how you sort of proclaimed your dislike for galas and your particular fondness for cars and car events. And that caused me to think about that arena of personalization and segmentation and that's probably what you mean when you're talking about knowing your customer, knowing your donor, or not wasting valuable resources on sort of an audience that just doesn't care to receive what you're sending.
Yeah, and again, wow, that is a good example of bringing that back. And I thought about that comment. It's not that I dislike galas, is it just doesn't always feel like I'm more of roll up your sleeves, boots on the ground when I want to participate in fundraising or helping out an organization. It's not
Yep.
that I don't enjoy a good banquet, you know, or a good night out where we get to dress up and go hear nice music and dance and see people. But it's just a different kind of vibe when it comes to that to me, right?
Right, right.
So,
And you're more inclined to say yes, maybe to something that has that vibe, especially maybe if it has some cars or motorcycles or something,
yes,
right?
exactly right. So something a little bit more casual and yeah. So and everybody has their place. Like somebody would feel they don't feel comfortable taking their shoes off and walking on the beach in Laguna to go to an event that's there to raise money, right? They would prefer
Hmm.
to go to, the Back Bay Yacht Club and have a nice meal, you know. So
Right, right, right. Good, good. Well, I do want to jump into the present, and that's sort of how we're maybe experiencing a little bit of a digital overload. Funny that maybe we went from a direct mailbox overload to a email box overload. I'm not sure. We'll explore that a little bit. But we certainly did move into more digital, into more email and I guess social as well, and that kind of
yeah.
online presence. What what made digital and email such a powerful shift initially, do you think?
So direct mail was becoming more and more expensive.
Okay.
And we had almost no way of um, capturing and tracking response rates until somebody actually bought something, right? So
Right,
they would
right.
say that, hey, a 1% or 2% response is great. 3% response rate, you've knocked it out, right? But
Yep.
sometimes it wasn't, you couldn't track it if it wasn't immediate, like call to action to buy something or donate, right? If you're developing that long-term relationship, I may not, the first quarter of the year, if I'm a business owner and I'm paying taxes, it's probably not when I want to donate, right? So if you're sending me that message, I want to hear about what you're doing, but I'm not going to open up my checkbook until May, right? And so it's not a failure in that sense.
Right.
But we would sell it like that, you just have to accept it. The 3% is great. And there was a high cost, right? And postage has gone up. In fact, people that bought the forever stamps 20 years ago and are now like reselling them is better than the stock market. It's been a great investment for them. So in the beginning, it was a near zero. It was a very marginal cost. It didn't cost much more to send out 100,000 emails than to send out 1,000, right? So that was the attraction.
Right.
That's what people were selling, along with other things. I'm not going to get into the greenwashing that was going.
Well, I think tracking to your point, right? You can see clicks, you can see opens, you can see there's more ways to measure the
Yeah,
response.
and there was a speed of getting your message out that didn't wasn't available at the time because of everything was offset. The digital technology wasn't there to digitally print and to
Yeah.
have the variable, right? So there was this speed to get your message out to the market and also send a lot of different to do A/B testing, right? That you could do that. Um, in the beginning, your inbox was scarcity there, right? So it was the new thing.
Yep.
And there was a measurability. Again, that was the thing that's changed immensely.
Hmm.
And then there was also a low barrier to storytelling. It was became more of a visual thing, right? You didn't have to spend as
Yeah.
much time crafting your story when you were just sending out a little email blast, right? Versus,
Yeah, and you could probably use pictures or images and video, where video was certainly not something you could very easily accomplish through the mailbox.
that's right. So, those returns started diminishing when there was the saturation in your inbox started happening.
I see.
Um, the rise of automated platforms it started killing that. And I gave you the story about communicating with a friend how I like chocolate, but I don't like baked chocolate and I don't like ice cream chocolate, right? But I like chocolate and he was like, "What's wrong with you?" He was disturbed by the fact that I didn't like baked chocolate. And then for the next week, I started getting ads follow me around to buy baked chocolate from different people. So that's what I'm talking about. That message was lost, and
Yep.
people are trying to
Yep.
communicate, and they're wasting time and money by communicating with me. Like Facebook ads, they're expensive, right? Um, I think some of them, the ones in my industry, it's like $20 an impression. Um, and a friend of mine owns a company that's basically a competitor of the company I work for. And after I left his organization for 2 weeks, I got about 20 ads on Facebook for his company. And I told him, and he goes, each time you look that pops up, it costs me $20, right?
Oh my
So
God.
he's like, he goes, but I don't know how to shift that. I don't know how to change it. And it worked out for him because he did get something out of it. He got 5 new customers, but
Okay.
he wasted a couple $1,000s basically on talking to competitors. The message wasn't there, it was this blast. Now, if you're a small nonprofit, that's not going to work for you, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then the ship to mobile impacted this. So it went from a web-based where you could look at on your screen to this small device, right?
Right, right.
And when it moved to that
That's
small
so limiting.
device, yeah, our attention span started changing. We weren't reading it quite as much, and now AI and Google and all the other mail servers do such a great job that it actually filters everything for you, right? So there's no longer just a spam folder and inbox. You have a folder now that just says promotional.
Mm,
And it's easy actually to go into that marketing part. There are events that I like to go to at UCI, educational events, and they've started ending up either in my spam folder or in my marketing folder. And to me, it's not, it's educational. So I think there might be a shift there somewhere. Maybe as an industry, we could talk to the people that create this technology about moving that out there. So
great.
99% of the time, I just open up my webmail browser, I click the top, it highlights all 200 emails, and I delete them at once. I don't even
Right.
look at them because it's sorted for them. And yes, sometimes I might miss something in that folder that I wanted to see, but for the most part, I think if they really want to talk to me, they'll get back. If it was something like, how many times have you got an email where somebody says, "Hey, Chris, go look in your spam folder. It's probably in there."
All the time. Yep.
You know what I mean? So
And
we got to
and
be
and
careful
and
not to that sort of happened. That mobile shift was part of the issue. Um, yeah. And then there's just fatigue, right? When we were just sort of getting overwhelmed with messages and messages and messages, it just came this fatigue. And it's
yeah.
very real, this digital fatigue, not only for boomers, Gen Xers, but millennials and Gen Zers, they all have it. Um,
Yeah. Well, you said something to me the other day, and I took note. You called it AI slop.
yeah, I
And
saw it. Yeah.
what's that? What is AI slop
Um,
in this context?
So I made a presentation and I wrote it, but I asked five different AI organizations to just sort of proof it and give me their 2 cents. And one of the big things that they said is don't lean into talking so much about technology and or presenting facts and numbers, right? You're going to lose your audience, make it more of a personal conversation. And they all said the same thing when they said there's so much AI slop out there that people have a fatigue about what's real and what's created by AI.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
that's what it's talking about is that it's just AI can create these wonderful presentations or craft a beautiful email, but there's nothing that's not personalized. And I know that there's ways of actually using it as a powerful tool to help you, right? To find a clear message and to refine your message and maybe fact check it. As long as it's not the creator, but it's assisting you,
Hmm.
I think is what's happening. Because it's just not sincere. It has its place. I'm not saying it doesn't have its place, but I don't think not when you're trying to have this one-on-one thing. And the other part is we created this sense of constant urgency, right?
Interesting.
And that narrative's not paying off so much anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Interesting.
I've seen that recently with animal shelters, for I've just started getting a ton of postings and links about all these animals that are being abandoned, and that they're on death row and they got a few hours. And it's like once you start getting that message over and over, and you see that some of it is not sincere, right? You start everything becomes insincere.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some really
Very.
great organizations that I help out there that are rescue societies, but when it just gets like this fatigue of just constant negative messages, it's kind of overwhelming. And
Yeah.
then and
No,
then it all becomes the same. That's the other
that's
thing.
right.
Digital is the same.
Yeah. Okay, so what the things that separate maybe effective digital communication today from sort of everything else getting ignored, um, we've now said that, there's not the same level of AI slop being used. There's some element of being authentic and original. Are there other ideas that you have about how organizations can be effective in their communication when you're thinking about the use of digital or print?
I think the consistency, there used to be a conversation around like your logo. Um, when you were deciding to do a logo, like one of the things they talked about was that orange is a bad color, right? Orange has become popular in the last few years as the color choice, but orange is actually one of the hardest colors to print and match.
Okay,
So it
that's
becomes
probably
a
why it got such a bad reputation, right?
Yeah, it's expensive, it's hard to match, but it became popular. You notice a lot of the big companies have orange.
Sure.
And the scaling of your logo. So they used to have like whole design conferences where it talked about it's one thing that looks great on a little piece of paper, right? Or
Yep.
how does it look when you blow it up,
Right. Good call.
right? To on a board, or versus the back of our card has all of our division logos. You can't see it. So this is an
Hmm.
example of a bad design, right? Is having continuity between your website, your social, your digital, and your analog, right? That it
Right.
feels genuine all the way through and that it's consistent. Not
Good.
taken away from personalization, but that the message is consistent in that feel. Did I get it?
Yep. 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 Well, now we're seeing some sort of rebound in interest in direct mail, in print, a return to the old channels, as you might say. And I suppose that's because people are realizing that digital isn't quite the solution everyone thought it was going to be, or not as effective as everyone thought it was going to be. Do you have a read on why we're seeing this renewed interest in sort of print and mail and whatnot?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but one is digital saturation has hit a ceiling,
Okay.
right? Like I said, with me, one click, I'm deleting 200 messages. And no matter how much time they spend in crafting those wonderful messages and designing it, I never see it, right? Um, that's probably the big attention span has gone down. It was 5 seconds and then it was 3 seconds, and I think it's a 1.8 seconds now, right? So you can, and again, so now you have to capture something, and a lot of it has to do with video. Um, There's a friend of mine. She's an AI ambassador. She's been involved with AI for over 30 years, so it's nothing new. And she's really kind of approaching it from a different angle at the moment, talking about it.
Okay.
Her ambassador, but she uploaded or shared 3 years of marketing, um, LinkedIn posts, emails, her website, her blogs, everything that she did. And what it came back to her and it said, to be nice, we think you think really highly of yourself, but we haven't heard anything from anybody else talking about what you do or praising. And that is a big shift that's going to happen here with digital, and online,
Okay.
with SEO and things like that. It's shifting. So it's no longer about, you know, me beating my drum. In the past,
Uh-huh.
you could have a wonderful FAQ page, by the way. If you wanted to cheat Google and the bots that were doing it, all you had to do has have a wonderful FAQ page that had all the questions you could ever think of and provide little answers, and it would put you up in the rankings,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And so it's not looking for that so much anymore. It wants to know,
Interesting.
it wants to hear stories from the people who have benefited from your nonprofit
Okay. That's
in
good.
their own words, right?
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
that is that's important. And then the contrast, the value, it's the mail inbox, the physical mail inbox isn't as saturated as it was 10 or 15 years ago. So that it's not that it's new, it's just that it's not as full as it used to be. So there's a lot of people in my industry that are not happy when I make the statement that it is not our job to take us back to those days.
Right.
And so when we're talking with our partners, our nonprofits, to help them avoid that, right? So
Yeah.
it's less money for the printer, it's less money for the mailer, it's less money for the post office. But what is the best um, package, right? It's a mix, what we're talking about. Digital, analog, online, offline, that continuity, the consistency of the message. Um, and
Yeah, so
there's
speak more about that, the recommendation that you would make to a nonprofit is not, yeah, jump back into print. That's the solution. Move away from digital. It's not going to help you at all. It's actually embracing them all. It's
absolutely,
figuring out
and
a way to master
yeah,
each of them.
even the United States Postal Service has embraced it. They have great discounts if on your mailer you have a QR code, right?
Okay.
If your mailer drives digital, right? So an offline drive to an online transaction, you can get up to like 10% rebate from the United States Postal Service. So it's a mix because there's some people that still only want to communicate digitally, but there's people that want to have both, right? But I can tell you that Gen Zers and millennials, they've been ignored when it comes to that, and there's a fascination with tactile with them, right? So it's a very different, and again,
Oh,
you have to
oh,
be.
better start opening up those bookstores again.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just went into Barnes and Noble right over here in Tustin Marketplace the other day, and I was surprised right next to the Whole Foods. And they've changed and adapted how they're doing that. But it was nice to be back in the bookstore.
Right,
Right.
100%. Oh man, that is good. Well, so the advice is not to abandon,
No,
but to integrate, to lock into the right strategies around each of the different methods,
it's
right?
a proper mix. And there's a lot of white papers, a lot of data out there. Um, AAA Westways magazine is a great example of using both. So there's
Okay.
a service called Informed Delivery, which I think nonprofits should take more advantage of it. It's a free service in the post office, and basically it's a digital ad. So if you have Informed Delivery, which is a free service, and this only works with B2C, not B2B, right? Mainly to
Okay.
consumer. Every morning in your inbox, you get an email from the United States Postal Service that has all your mail scanned. So since 9/11, all mail is scanned, and you'll see on the back sometimes there's like a little pink barcode. They know who it came from and where it's going. So every day in your inbox, you'll get a scan of all the mail that's arriving and packages,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The U.S. Postal Service gives you ability to put a little ad in there, and it knows that today I'm getting my Westways magazine, but there's also a call to action, an offer that I can get in advance. I can click on that and go to a website. So there's like a lot of things like that that are incorporated
I see.
that are wonderful, and it makes it kind of exciting, right?
Yeah. 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 I love it. We had the conversation, and I added this in. it doesn't quite fit in terms of the strategy of using direct mail. It's something different, but I wanted to just provide an opportunity for you to help people understand the true costs of
Hmm.
direct response because I think I get the sense that there's a limited perspective on how people evaluate the cost of direct response, and you were like, well, what about the storage? What about the fuel? So like when people think about direct response, what costs in your mind are they underestimating?
Yeah. So again, regardless of the channel, and there's always a cost, right? Um,
Yeah, take us through that.
well, there could be the cost of trust, right?
Okay.
And there's the cost of legitimacy, and there's the cost of permanent values associated with an organization. So, but we're going to talk about the actual dollar hard cost, right? So,
Fair.
not all direct communication and direct marketing is a letter or a brochure, right?
Right.
Some of the organizations I work with are actually creating like a kit or they're sending out a product as part of their nonprofit. And or even on the direct mail side, I'll start with that. So I actually got an email last night from a friend of mine, and she runs amazing organization, and it has to do with body image with women, right? She's a plus size
Hmm.
model. She's a twin. In high school, she was a size 18, and her sister was a size 0, right? Her twin. And so she had a lot of body issues, and then she became a model, and she found out the ugly side of social media as people were, attacking her for her looks and how she should be ashamed of wearing that kind of clothes at her weight. And so I've tried to help her a lot with different things. But yesterday she came to me. I've done flyers here and there. She asked if I could print a book for her. It's 185 pages, right? And I think, well, maybe I could do a book one time, but we're not the print vendor that can do that for you, right? And
Right.
she, and I think a lot of smaller nonprofits get these relationships with printers or providers that'll do things for them at little or no cost, but you can't scale that, right? You can't scale that. And as an organization grows bigger and better, bigger and bigger, they should at the beginning understand what the true cost is so that if and when they get to that point where they actually start paying the fair market value for the services that they're getting, they don't get a
Right.
shock, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
can't print flyers for free. Maybe when you're doing 50 or 500, but not when you're doing 50,000 or 100,000.
Right.
And the mistake they make is they don't build that into their budget. They don't understand that, even though they're not paying today. So somebody else was making these kits that they were sending out, and then it had like disaster relief things in there. And they were asking me to help them organize the box and how to build it. And I kept going back to, so what's the cost? What's the cost of the cardboard? What's the cost of the label that's going in there? What's the cost of this? And they're like, well, and the labor to build it. And they're in the process of writing grants to get funded. And I said, I noticed this is not in your cost. And like, well, we're
Right.
doing it right now in-house for free. And I said, so what happens a year from now when you outgrow this and you have to hire people to do this and it wasn't built into your grant? Right? So that's the true cost. And so it's factoring what is the fair market value for to hire somebody to build the box and put the stuff in there, to print what's going to go in there, to produce the water bottle. What's the cost for the postage? And one of the things, what's the cost for storage? So it's like, well, I don't pay anything. Yes, you do. You're paying rent on your building or you're paying your mortgage, right? Whatever it is you're paying to store that item there. And I could geek out all day long on that because there's people that have stored things for 5 years and they got a great deal because they got 500 of them and they only needed 50. Yes, they would have paid a little bit more for 50, but the cost to store it for 5 years outweighed the savings that they had of buying the 500, right? So it's having that
Fair.
kind of
Fair.
conversation and understand that. So that's the true
Yeah.
cost. And it should be factored in there, even though right now you're getting a discounted or free, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that to me was really helpful you can't get something free forever. So you might, convince Ruben, hey, for this gala, can you print out some things? And you're a good guy and you do it. But that's not going to work every year. And so next year you might have to pay. Well, that's a cost, right? And I guess my question as a follow-up is, are people not thinking about the true cost of digital? Is that the same thing, or are we just talking about print when we think about understanding the true costs? And I know that's not necessarily your area per
Right.
se,
And I kind
but
of bled a little bit earlier because the true cost is the ROI. Yeah, you can send out 10,000 emails and feel like I got a bargain because I only paid $100, right? But what
yeah,
is the true cost of how many actual responses do you get? How many people complain that your domain is spam now, right?
right. Good, good,
You
good.
send an unsolicited request to them. Um, how much
Your
ill
time.
your time, right? Waste of time and sitting back thinking I can just send an email out, I'm gonna get a response. So yeah,
Got it. That's helpful. Yeah, I'm really glad we kind of touched on that because, um, I mean, I think there's just a cost to all of the different channels, whether it's obvious or not, and you have to really, to your point, focus in on that ROI and be totally aware of what that is relative to the costs, hidden or otherwise. Um, let's jump into the future because we only have a few more minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that we helped nonprofit leaders be prepared, right? And do you have any sense of what direct response in your mind will look like in 3 to 5 years out?
our challenge is to pass the torch to the Gen Zers and the millennials. And we've done a very poor job of that, helping
Okay.
them understand the difference between advertising and direct marketing and confusing the two, right? So if you're posting everywhere, it's just advertising versus that direct marketing. I think that's what the future looks like is sitting down and having that conversation agnostically. We're here approaching this. What is the best practice for your organization? It's not the
Hmm.
best practice for every organization. And for the most part, the service providers out there have, massage that message to fit the needs of their organization when I'm talking about best practices, right?
Yep.
That if I convince you that this is now the best practice, now my printing presses are going to be running and we're going to be stuffing envelopes or we're going to mail in it. It might not be the best practice, right? It's coming back and saying you have to go back to storytelling, right? You have to go back to developing a relationship and it's not through a click. It's not through a 3-second video, right? That's not how
Hmm.
you develop a relationship, a long-term partnership. It's understanding what segmentation is, right? And what true one-to-one marketing is, what personalization is. Um, and then also understanding, what the negatives and the positives are of each one. So 10 years ago, people would say, don't print because you're destroying the rainforest. That's a lie, right? Paper in the United States is a crop. It's just like corn. It's a crop. It's specifically, there is no paper in the United States that came from the rainforest in Brazil, right? So, but people would say that who were selling digital, right? But
Yep.
I was having a conversation with somebody else. The amount of energy and power that all this AI is creating to keep those servers going, right? The noise pollution, the heat that it's creating, the amount of fuel. So there's that kind of conversation as well, is that digital can be argued that it's actually worse for the environment than paper ever was, right? So it's
Hmm.
being prepared to have that open, honest conversation. Um,
That's good.
but sitting
Speaking
down
of
and
AI,
educating the next
right?
generation of marketers, the next
Yeah,
generation of fundraisers, right?
that's
Um,
important. Yeah, and I appreciate you calling out the distinction between advertising and direct response. Because I don't often just sort of distinguish between those two in my daily life as well. But for someone that's in the like looking into communications and how to reach people, that's such an important distinction.
And I did some research, and I had there was like these one line, and it's a generalization, but they were pretty good about
Okay.
what each one of these channels, the role that they play, right? So email, there's it's low friction, right?
Yep.
And you can reinforce your message. Direct mail has depth and has emotional anchoring. It's trustworthy. SMS, text messages, there's urgency and behavioral nudges, right? So Walmart, get a package from them, they're sending me a text message. My doctor, my insurance company, and CVS are all connected now. I get a text message from them, your prescription's ready, right? So there's certain areas where, with their permission, texting is still relevant, right? It has that sense of
Sure.
urgency. Social ads, it brings awareness. Retargeting, people can share that. Um, it's a lot harder to share a piece of mail unless you're at home and your family's there, right? Everybody gets to look at it. That you can forward that, and then landing pages. That there's clarity there. It helps with conversion, and there's a proof that you actually exist. I don't know I can't tell you how many companies have ignored their website recently and not updated it,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
They're so focused on everything else, and there's still that thing that I land there and I might not read all 500 pages that you put up there, but at least if the first few pages look like they're valid, then I want to trust you.
That's really good advice because I can't tell you how many times I get an email or something from someone who says they're from some company or some organization, and they don't necessarily reference their website or something, but I use the email exchange to go check out the website and see how legitimate it really is, right? Because they can send me a PDF or a brochure, but I want to know more, right? I want to dig deeper. So go to the
When they don't
website.
match, it's disturbing, right? Their email doesn't
Oh,
match the domain name.
that's a non-starter. I mean that's just malpractice. So yeah, I get it. And maybe there's a good reason. I can't think of one right now, but that's certainly something I've seen as well. Or, the organization that is kind of showcasing itself as a leader of some sort in some sector. And then the email that you get from someone is a Gmail address, right? Not even tied to a website and you're just wondering like how legitimate, how competent is this organization if they can't even connect a website to an email account, or they must be really stuck hard with cash not to be able to pay the 200, 300, whatever it is per year to have
Oh,
an
oh
email
my
account.
God, you just brought something up. This kind of goes so far and so deep and so wide, and I told you sometimes you would trigger something.
Yeah, we can't unfortunately go there today. We might
No,
have to come back, but
but
tell me your point.
so if I was using my LinkedIn, right? People say I don't ever read my emails on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to communicate with LinkedIn. If I export, which it allows me to, my email database from all my connections, right? I would say a high percentage of those people do not have their work email in their LinkedIn profile, which is
Yeah,
always
right.
suspect to me anyways when they're representing, right? They have their
Yeah.
personal email. So I did a distribution from my LinkedIn database that I exported on actually was to support a nonprofit. Like we were trying to get goodies for this stuff. I had
Yeah.
so many complaints. Why are you sending me a work-related email to my home email? And I said, it's because that's what you have in your LinkedIn profile. And that's what I'm talking about. That could harm you whether you're mailing something, emailing something, or texting or posting it.
Yeah.
And
Good.
it's the clarity of the data. So the next time I sent an email, I said, hey, by the way, the starting line was, you may not be happy receiving this email from me, but it's the email you have listed in your LinkedIn profile. So I put it right up front. And I
Yeah.
only send
Yeah.
this when I have an ask to help a nonprofit out. We're doing a goodie
Yeah.
bag. Do you have something you could
Good.
donate? And I put that as the first line. So it kind of
Yeah.
goes back to that whole craziness of,
Well, that's a very good example of how you suddenly became a direct response marketer right there. I mean, like for your own volunteering or your own organization. I know that you run a nonprofit as well. So that's a very practical and helpful example. So I appreciate you sharing it. Let's kind of just wind ourselves up with a little bit of big thinking. Um, Question one, will personalization become more important or less?
Oh, absolutely more important.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to know that you know about me and my likes and dislikes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that what my passion is and why I love supporting you as a nonprofit, right?
Yep.
There might be something
Yeah.
very specific within an organization and they could still miss the message because they're talking about this versus this, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Good. Good. Okay. So last question. What are the few things that every nonprofit leader should either start or stop doing now in this realm? What would you recommend to them?
Well, I hate to say this in this tone, but stop listening to salespeople who are only concerned about selling their product.
Okay. Fair.
Um, and start partnering and listening to people who are more concerned with the overall broad thing and helping you find and create that cohesiveness um, and optimize for coherence. That was the word I was looking for across all
Hmm.
the channels, right?
Yeah.
And so whatever you're going to do, just make sure it's coherent, right? That it's still genuine. But as you grow and scale, there's different things. So we're not talking about, I don't know what you call the top nonprofits out there, the Fortune 500s of the nonprofits, right?
Right.
Um,
Right. Right. Right.
we're talking about the other, what, 98%, 99% of nonprofits out there, they're bootstrapped, right? And it's all labor of love.
The vast majority of nonprofits. Okay.
Yeah. Of just finding that channel and not wasting your time and money and effort on the one that doesn't fit you, right? So your donor base may be all digital. So direct mail may not work, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But then also you have people, if you're trying to get people to come to an event and it's in a proximity of a like at a park and you want to make sure everybody there can go to, there's a thing called EDDM with the every door direct mail with the post office, which saves you like 50% off of regular mail. And in that situation, a saturation is what you want, right? Um, but in other situations, that's absolutely what you don't want. You don't want to do a saturation. You want to be very
Yeah.
laser focused and pinpointed in what you're doing.
Good. 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 Well, Ruben, thank you. This has been such a incredibly valuable conversation, and the evolution of direct response really tells a bigger story, not just about channels, but about how we understand and respect the people we're trying to reach. And from the rise and overuse of direct mail to digital overload to the temptation to swing back without strategy, the
Yeah.
through line here is clear, thoughtful, intentional, coherent communication wins. So thank you for sharing your perspective and challenge all of us to think more strategically about this medium in the future. And to everyone listening, if this conversation sparked new thinking for you, take a moment to reflect on your current approach. Um, are you creating connection or just adding to the noise? If you need a good partner, reach out to Ruben at the Dot, of course. I give him my highest recommendation. And thanks all for joining us on this episode of the Nonprofit Edge. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. We'll see you all very soon on the next episode. Bye, all.
Thank you for joining us for the Nonprofit Edge, a podcast series to promote purpose in practice. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation and learned some important lessons from our featured expert. We always want our content to be informative and to position nonprofit leaders to succeed. Please join us again for our next podcast. In the meantime, we wish you all the best and encourage you to learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership by visiting our website at www.fulcrumleader.com.